This video is on how to field strip and clean the CZ P10 C. This is not a complete disassembly video. We're only going to break it down as far as you need to go for basic maintenance and cleaning. To get started, you'll need a few things. 9mm size bore snake. CLP, which stands for cleaner, lubricant, and protectant. Don't get too caught up in the brand you pick. Any of the major brands work. I do recommend a needle applicator bottle like this one just to get more precise with your application. Cotton swabs with an angled tip specifically designed for gun cleaning. 9mm size jag. 9mm size bronze bore brush. Powder-free latex gloves. A cleaning rod with a handle that allows the rod to spin freely. I say that because if you just push the bore brush through the bore without the rod allowing it to spin freely, the bristles will just scrape right over the rifling and you may not get a thorough clean. A microfiber rag. I prefer to use the ones that are specific to gun cleaning because they don't leave lint. You can get all this from your local gun store, and I'll also leave links to everything in the notes below. Always start out with a clear and empty weapon, but of course I'm going to double check before I get started. To do that, press the magazine release button. Drop the magazine. Lock the slide back by pushing it to the rear and pushing up on the slide stop lever. Now make sure it's clear. Don't just look down into the magazine well, actually tilt the gun over and look into the chamber to make sure it's empty. Now I know I'm 100% clear, so I'm going to press down on the slide stop lever and let the slide go home. Now pull the trigger. Now make a C-clamp with your hand like this. Pull in the top of the slide with your fingers and push forward with your thumb as you're pulling that tab on the right and that tab on the left downward at the same time. I'm going to pull the slide back just a little bit, and as soon as I feel those tabs give, I can release the slide and remove it. So as I'm pulling both the left and right tabs down at the same time, I'm going to start to pull back on the slide using my C-clamp. So if you watch closely, because the slide doesn't move very much, it's going to look just like this. Now compress the recoil spring from chamber in to muzzle in, and it'll pop right out. Now you can remove the barrel. And this is as far as you need to go for a basic field strip and clean. You have the frame, the recoil spring, the barrel, and the slide, and also the magazine, which is off camera right now. You don't have to do this in any particular order, but I'm going to start with the barrel. Connect the bore brush to the cleaning rod. Add CLP. I'm only going to push the bore brush through the bore in one direction, from chamber in to muzzle in. I'm not going to push the dirt out and pull it right back in. Kind of like sweeping the floor. You don't just sweep back and forth because you'll make a mess. You sweep in one direction. So I push the rod through. When it comes out of the muzzle in, I remove the brush, pull the rod back out, and start it over again. There's no specific number of times you need to do this. It really depends on how much you've been shooting. In this case, I'm just going to push it through a few times and move on. Now attach the jag to the cleaning rod. Add CLP to a cleaning patch. If you don't have cleaning patches, you can use a cut-up t-shirt. Just cut the pieces about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit bigger than that. Wrap them around the jag and push it through the bore from chamber in to muzzle in. You'll see that the first one comes out really dirty, like this one. Just keep repeating this process until the patches start to come out clean. I'd say that's clean enough. Now take your bore snake, make sure it's the correct size. It's going to say the size on the weight. So it'll say 9mm, 38, 380, 357. In this case it says 38. All those calibers have the same diameter. So take the weighted end, drop it into the chamber, and pull the string out through the muzzle. Do this a couple of times. You can get the bore fairly clean with cleaning patches, but if you want it perfect, use a bore snake. It only takes a couple of passes with a bore snake, and if you look inside the bore, you'll see that it looks like clean black glass. Add CLP to the brush and start scrubbing all outer surfaces of the barrel. Take a good look at the feed ramp and inside the chamber. Make sure it looks perfectly clean. If it does, let's move on. Now I'm going to wipe it down with my microfiber rag. Now I'm going to reapply a fresh coat of CLP just to add a layer of protectant to the outside surfaces. Now I'm going to clean the recoil spring, add CLP to the brush, and start scrubbing in between the coils. Now clean off the excess CLP by rolling it on top of the microfiber rag. Now I'm going to get started on the slide, but first I want to warn you about this area right here. That's the breech face. Be careful not to leak CLP down into that hole that the firing pin comes out of. And also be careful not to leak CLP down into the striker channel. That's this area right here. Add CLP to the brush and start scrubbing all outer surfaces. Now I'm going to focus on the inside of the slide. I'm going to use the smaller part of the nylon brush to get into the rail channels, so add CLP to the brush and start scrubbing those. The smaller end of the brush is also good for getting behind the extractor. The extractor is this little piece right here that looks like a hook. Now that I have all the carbon and fouling loosened up with a brush, I'm going to go through the cotton swab and CLP in fine detail. Add CLP to the angled part of the cotton swab and start scrubbing inside the rail channels. You'll see that the first cotton swab comes out really dirty after you run it through a few times. Just keep repeating this step until the cotton swabs start to come out clean. After you've gone through the entire slide in fine detail, wipe off all the excess CLP inside and out using your microfiber rag. Now I'm going to reapply fresh CLP. I'm going to add a medium coat to the rail channels as well as any high friction areas and a light coat to all other surfaces. I am going to be careful not to leak CLP down into those areas that I mentioned earlier. So the way I apply a protective coat of CLP is I add a couple of drops wherever I need it, and I use the cotton swab to spread it out evenly. And for the outer part of the slide, it's pretty much the same thing. I add a couple of drops here and there, and I use the microfiber rag to spread it out evenly. Now I'm going to work on the frame, add CLP to the brush, and start scrubbing all surfaces inside and out. Now that I've loosened up all the carbon and fouling with a brush, I'm going to go through with a rag and cotton swab in fine detail. Now I'm going to wipe off all the CLP with my rag, then I'm going to go back and reapply fresh CLP to the parts where I want it. I don't want to leave anything slippery on the script, so the easiest way to remove the CLP is wrap a clean rag around it and squeeze. The magazine isn't something you need to disassemble every time you clean unless you dropped it in mud, dirt, or sand or something like that. If you do need to take it apart, I really don't think you need a video to show you how to do it. It's really easy. All you need to do is take a brass punch or a pin or something and press that button at the bottom of the magazine base plate. Slide the base plate off. The spring and follower will come out. Use CLP, your brush, and your rag. Clean out the inside of the magazine sleeve and all the other parts. Wipe it completely dry. You don't want to leave any excess CLP inside the magazine or outside because it'll just collect dust. Then just put it back together in reverse order the way it came out. So the follower will go in first, then the spring, then the base plate, and you just have to make sure that that little button captures the bottom of the base plate. This magazine hasn't been dropped in anything, and it's really not that dirty, so I'm just going to give it a basic clean and wipe down. Clean it with CLP, but be careful not to leak CLP down into these witness holes or down underneath the follower here. Add CLP to the brush, scrub all outer surfaces, then take your microfiber rag and wipe it all down, and just make sure it's completely dry. Okay, everything's clean and lubricated. It's time to put it back together. So grab the barrel, place it back in the slide like that. Grab the recoil spring. This small end of the recoil spring goes towards the muzzle end, and of course this larger flat piece here goes chamber in. So push the small end of the recoil spring in first towards the front, then you can push the larger flat piece in. Line up the rail channels on the slide with the rails on the frame and pull the slide back on. Now I'm going to do a function check. Pull the trigger, but don't let it go. Work the slide. Now release the trigger, it should reset. Pull the trigger again. If you hear a click, everything is good. But I want to make sure it locks back on an empty magazine. Insert an empty mag. Pull the slide back and it should stay back to the rear like that. If it does, everything's good to go. I made this video for total beginners, so I hope it helped you out. If it did, please give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.